Okay, off the top of your head, name a popular Sega Game Gear game. Go ahead. I'm waiting. Yeah, I can't name one either. So I had no idea what to review. Thankfully, someone had recommended one to me. It's called Predator 2, and it's another one of those games that are based on a movie. I love the original movie, but sadly, since I'm not a movie buff, I haven't watched the sequel yet. But I'm not worried about the movie. I'm here to focus on the game. Now, I've only touched the Game Gear about 3 or 4 times, and the most memorable thing is the life of the batteries. Because of that, many of the games aren't very long. This game isn't an exception, and clocks in at only about 7 stages, and can be completed in about 45 minutes. There's also some passwords for the first 6 stages, but for some reason there's none for the last one. I have a theory about this, but I'll get to that later. Now, I had the sense of looking up the plot of the Predator 2 movie, and from what I've read, the game follows the movie pretty well. I'm not going to get too into it, as I'll probably sound clueless, but the basics are that the Predator is in a city hunting civilians, while the police are battling drug gangs. In the game, you're fighting these gangs while the Predator is hunting you, and if that's not enough, you have to save hostages as well. If you don't rescue enough hostages, or you're too slow, the Predator will either kill you or them. You can tell when he's coming, as you can see what's supposedly his tri-laser. The Predator moves slowly, so it's pretty easy to avoid him. In fact, it's almost pathetically easy to avoid him. So here's your basic stage. You go from the left of the level to the right, blasting coke addicts, rescuing hostages, and avoiding the Predator. On occasion, the druggies will drop bags of drugs, and if you pick them up, you get bonus points. Points are only good for extra lives, but they stack up quickly. In fact, it's actually kind of difficult to die in this game. There's a ton of health power-ups, and you have a decent-sized health bar. The biggest challenge you have is not to touch your enemies, as unlike most other video games where if you get hit, you're invulnerable for a short time, here, instead, you are constantly taking damage with no break. So if you linger on top of one thug for an extended period of time, you're dead. Fortunately for you, it's incredibly easy to dodge enemies in the gunfire. Even the bosses are ridiculously easy. Well, other than the final boss with the Predator, that is. More on that later. You do get some assistance by taking down the thugs. Although you have infinite ammunition for your pistol, you can pick up other weapons, although most of them aren't very useful. The only one I actually used was the assault rifle, which is able to kill most enemies in 1 or 2 bullets. The other machine gun, which kinda looks like a submachine gun, isn't too bad either, but the ammo is a bit more limited. But it's featured in more stages, whereas the assault rifle is a bit more rare. You can also pick up grenades, which are moderately useful against enemies shooting at you from windows, and a shotgun, which I find is pretty much an ignorable weapon. The shotgun fires a few bullets in a spread out pattern, but oftentimes the bullets will casually breeze harmlessly by the thugs, and the ones that do get hit do about as much damage as your pistol. So you may as well just use the pistol to make sure you get the accuracy right. As for changing the guns, it's a pain in the ass. I think pressing start and then switching weapons in an inventory system would have been better, but instead you're forced to cycle through the guns in one direction. So if you want a certain gun and you accidentally go past it, you'll have to switch through everything else you're carrying just to get to what you want. This is especially annoying when trying to use grenades, as you're busy trying to focus on getting the right weapon while at the same time avoiding anything that's just trying to kill you. Now, while I'm talking about weapons and shooting the thugs, this can be a hassle all on its own. In order to aim, you use the control pad. The pad also has you move, so in order to change directions, you need to move to that direction just to shoot. This would be fine, but when there's thugs chasing you and closing in on you, it can be difficult to maneuver around. And if it's difficult to move around, it's going to be challenging to aim. And if you can't aim, you can't kill your enemy. And if you can't kill your attackers, you're just dead. Oh, and when you get hit, you hear this noise. It's freaking annoying. I get it that the game wants to remind you that you're taking damage, but damn it, is this ear-splitting noise really necessary? And remember, you don't get any invulnerability period after you get hit, so you might hear that annoying noise for a few seconds at a time. It's a good reminder not to take damage. Oh, and the bosses? They seem to retain damage. I noticed that a few times I was dealing a lot of damage to a boss, die, and then come back and kill the boss within a few hits. This is, I think, why there might not be a password for the 7th stage. Basically, you can start the 6th stage, rack up a few extra lives, and then need them in the final stage. The stage itself is difficult, much more than all the other stages beforehand, with a bunch of predators all attacking you. But the final predator boss? He's just plain frustrating. He comes from random doors, and you just need to attack him while trying to avoid or kill his pals. But since bosses keep their health from life to life, as long as you have a good stock left, you should be fine. I know I'm jumping around a lot, but there's a few gripes I have with the stages. I'll admit, they're not exactly game breakers, but instead just things that annoyed the hell out of me. First, the hostages. Why are they here? Is it really necessary? Why can't I just run through stages, killing the thugs and avoiding any predator attacks? I don't get it. To me, it feels like something that was just tacked on to give you an extra objective, rather than just killing meth heads. Second, almost every enemy you walk into is a drug dealer. Many enemies drop baggies of what looks like crack. Again, picking them up causes you to get a few points. That's it. There's no other point to it. Third, the ends of the stages seem to have just stopped abruptly. You can be running around shooting your enemies, then all of a sudden, mid-battle, you enter the boss area. Why are things so sudden? Why can't you just finish up the firefight, then meet up with the boss? I mean, the screen moves slow as it is, so you are suddenly in a hurry once your character sees the boss? Now, I mentioned the bosses are easy, so let me show you what one looks like. With all bosses, you have the main boss, who's typically in the center of the screen. While you're trying to kill that, a bunch of the lesser enemies will just keep spawning from the sides of the screen and also the sewers. If you kill them, they'll just respawn in a few seconds. But if you don't kill them, they'll just swarm you and can kill you. So you need to balance attacking the boss and killing off the mobs. But once you get a pattern down, the boss can be taken down with minimal effort. And after you defeat the boss, you get a password and then continue to the next stage. The graphics aren't too bad. For a portable color system, they have some pretty nice detail to them. The characters and enemies are all well detailed. The stages have some decent textures to them, especially in the urban areas. Of course, the bullets only look like white BBs. But my biggest problem is how they portray the predator in the levels. 3 red dots, similar to Splinter Cell's Sam Fisher. I would have thought they'd be able to come up with something a little bit better than that. Maybe somehow a small distortion of the screen area? Even an outline of the predator's body would have been nicer than 3 red circles. There's not much more I can say about this game. For a Game Gear game, I was actually pretty surprised on how good it actually was. The hostages seem like an extra addition, and the game itself could have easily been marketed as a possible Narc sequel if you took out the Predator. But overall, it's a decent game. Give it a try if you still have a Game Gear and extra batteries lying around. Final score? 7 out of 10. This is Reaper. Happy fragging.